Welcome to Imagination Theater, brought to you by Valu-Rite, America's neighborhood pharmacy. Sit back, turn down the lights, and turn up your imagination as we present a full hour of mystery and suspense. A journey into the dark corners of your mind and the very reaches of your own imagination. Join us as we present a very special hour-long presentation entitled The Shrine, when a billionaire computer genius can't give up his compulsion for control even after his death. It's a very gripping hour-long drama, and it's just ahead in this week's Imagination Theater. This is executive producer Dave Adams, inviting you to join us for The Shrine in just a moment. And now, back to Imagination Theater.
My name is George Cravens. I'm Vice President and General Manager of Hess Biocybernetics International, and I've known Andy Hess since my undergraduate days at Caltech. We were more than buddies. We were intellectual clones. That is, until he began to pull way ahead of me in that department. We were adventurous, the way kids are. We think we'll live forever, but Andy didn't, and I miss him. I'm getting ahead of the story. Let me bring Andy Hess back to you the way I knew him in our first year at Caltech. We had Professor Felix Zillinsky for math. He taught Cantor and Hilbert, and we lapped it up. And one day, he held a test on probability, and Andy showed up 10 minutes into the class carrying a shoebox. He sat down beside me.
Mr. Hess, you are late.
I know, Professor. I'm sorry.
What's that in the shoebox?
I'm sorry, Professor. I had to rescue my kitten.
You have a cat in that box? You can't bring an animal into my classroom.
But she won't be any trouble.
Well, let's have a look at Kitty.
Of course, Zillinsky threw Andy and his robot cat out of the class and gave him an F for the test, but Andy didn't take it lying down.
Professor, listen, anybody can pass an exam, but I built an electromechanical quadruped with servos and sensors that uses 20 discrete processors all linked together like brain cells, which proves I understand everything your exam was about.
You try my patience, Mr. Hess. You don't take my direction, you rebel at authority, and you are an insufferable show-off. What am I going to do with you?
Oh, give me an A. You know I know this stuff.
Mr. Hess, you are insufferable, intolerable.
Fact was, Andy was just plain bored. The way his mind worked, he didn't study, he just knew. He knew the answers, sometimes before the questions were asked. Well, we graduated and IBM hired us. I stayed with the company 5 years, and Andy quit after 18 months. They were glad to be rid of him because he wouldn't follow the rules. So he started his own company and made up his own rules. And he made money. He let me know that whenever he'd call me to announce new contract with firms that were using his stuff. And then one day he blew into town and called me to meet him in his hotel room, and he came right to the point.
I need you, Georgie.
You just decided that. Well, where were you 6 months ago when I quit Big Blue to go on my own?
Well, I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now. And I want you to run my business so I can spend full time in development.
Yeah, but I've got a little company I'm trying to get off the ground.
I'll buy it.
What?
I'll buy it if it's going to stand in the way.
You're trying to impress me.
Absolutely. Look, this is your chance to do what you always wanted to do. You know, break away and thumb your nose at all.
No, that's what you always wanted to do.
Well, listen, I've got contracts with a big Japanese industrial conglomerate and a Korean heavy industry firm and a London software outfit. They're worth millions. And you know what? I'm tearing them all up because I've got something so much greater.
Like what?
Well, I can't tell you till you come on board.
Well, I can't give up what I'm doing.
Yes, you can. I know what you're doing, and you're going nowhere. It's old technology.
How do you know what I'm doing?
I know what you're doing, and I know what you're making. Zilch.
You always were a cocky guy, but it's not so cute now.
Cocky? Sure. Because I always knew what I wanted, and now I know how to get it.
Yeah, you buy it. Well, I'm sorry, Andy, but I'm not for sale just now.
Wait, you haven't heard my big finish. Look. Go ahead, open it.
Nice attaché case.
Well, open it.
Why?
Will you open it?
What is this?
It's your signing bonus.
What?
$60,000.
What?
It's yours. Cash. And the IRS doesn't know a thing about it. What's this? You're walking out? You're walking away from a dream job?
Much luck, Andy.
It's not enough? All right, how much do you want?
I'm broke. You say you know that.
Yeah.
But I'd have come with you for nothing.
Look, close the door and come down off your lofty principles for a minute, will you? Come on, Georgie. Now listen to me. You know what I've got? I've built an intuitive machine. Yeah, it not only thinks, it feels, and it dreams, and it makes the dreams come true.
Impossible.
It's been right there in our faces for 2 years, a natural outgrowth of chip technology.
Oh, parallel processing. It's being done every day.
Listen to me. Yes, it's massively parallel in its architecture, but it's built of chips like brain cells. Each chip has memory, and the memories are organized to recognize new input and act on what it's stored. It's machine intuition.
So what form is it in?
What form?
Yeah, breadboard or a model?
Listen, right this minute there are 15 Hess 180s humming away. They're in 13 major Fortune 500 companies, the Pentagon, and the CIA.
Hess 180s?
We can change the name. I call it the 180 because it's a 180-degree switch from the Van Neumann computer systems we've come to know and love.
I've never seen them advertised.
No need to advertise. Intelligent leaks do it all. You know, when one company has a Hess 180, the competition has to have one. The orders are coming in too fast to keep up with. We're back-ordered a year. But you're going to take care of that.
You're so sure of me, it's disgusting.
Is that a yes? Huh? Well, is it?
Well, we set up Hess Biocybernetics International. I got married, and Andy gave us a hillside mansion for a wedding present. But for himself, Andy didn't seem to be interested in any of the luxuries a rich man would enjoy. He spent all of his time holed up in a little windowless workshop in a corner of our headquarters building, working day and night on some new project. I think if I'd known exactly what it was, I'd have bailed out then and there.
Imagination Theater will continue after this. Imagination Theater continues.
Now that he had the money to do practically anything that came into his mind, Andy seemed to be entranced with how money affected people. He ran a really dumb contest for his employees, and the winner got a new car and a month's vacation anywhere in the world, but there was also another side to Andy.
I don't want to hear why you screwed up. I don't want excuses. I want performance.
I'm sorry, Andy, but my wife has gone into labor.
I don't want to hear about it. You got her pregnant. That's your problem. But when you miss an appointment and stand up a customer, that's my problem, and I don't like problems.
I swear it won't happen again.
You got that right. You're out of here.
What?
You're history.
You're kidding, right?
Andy, can I speak with you for a moment?
Not now, Georgie.
Mr. Hess, please. I've never missed an appointment before.
Get out of here. I'll mail your stuff to your house. Now get out.
What in the world was that all about?
That incompetent excuse for a salesman was supposed to do a service call on CXR. We promised them service. He goofs up.
His wife's having a baby.
So what?
So what? So give the guy a couple days off.
I gave him the rest of his life off.
I don't know what's getting into you, Andy. One minute you're handing out bonus checks and making every department head a millionaire, then you can some poor guy because he was thinking of his wife's welfare. What's happening to you?
I'll find out what hospital she's in and send some flowers.
When he was 38, Andy got married. He'd been in every magazine from GQ to the National Enquirer. He'd been called the most eligible bachelor in the Western world, the richest playboy in America, but these labels fell short of the mark that Andy had in mind. He was rich, but he was more impressed with his own intellect than by the fortune it had made him. So when he chose a mate, it was not a famous beauty. It was a New York psychologist, 3 years his senior, nearly his equal in IQ. Her name was Roberta Murkowski, Dr. Roberta Murkowski.
Call me Bobby. Everyone does.
You were a well-kept secret. Bobby.
Well, Andy and I both wanted to avoid publicity. I have a career of my own.
And a very noteworthy one.
Oh, thank you. Well, we didn't like the idea of having to dodge reporters everywhere we went. We got married by a justice of the peace in Connecticut and decided to just have a few of our closest friends in here at home for the reception.
Well, you sure surprised me. I thought I knew everything about Andy. Speaking of the groom.
There's my competition. Bobby, when I'm out late at night, don't let this guy move in on you.
Oh, you're awful. I've met George's wife, and she's twice as attractive as I am, so I don't think George would...
I didn't marry you for your beauty, sweetheart. It was your brain I lusted for.
Their marriage didn't seem to change either one of them. It was almost as if two acquaintances had decided to move in together to share expenses, period. Or so I thought. Until the first time they had us over to dinner. Just Andy and his bride and my wife Lori and me. Lori took me aside before we sat down to eat.
There's trouble.
Trouble? What do you mean?
Bobby's pregnant.
Oh, that's great.
Well, she doesn't think so. She doesn't want a baby. Well, she's in her 40s and she has a going career.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we barely had gotten our coats off when she pulled me upstairs and told me. And tonight, when Andy's going to make the big announcement, she's ready to kill him.
Poor Andy.
Well, what about her? She thinks Andy's double-crossed her because they've never discussed children. Is that all you can say? Just,
Well, I think it's a shame when a child's born to parents who don't want it.
Oh, Andy wants it.
Dinner, you two. Okay, your attention, please. It may not look like it, but this is a very special and significant evening. Georgie, Lori, my two closest friends in this world, I wanted you to be the very first to know. I'm about to become a father, a papa. What do you think of that?
Why, I think that's wonderful. Don't you, George?
Wonderful, you bet. Hey, congratulations, Andy. Congratulations, Bobby.
Thanks.
When are you due, Bobby?
The first week of December.
Well, a little Christmas present, huh?
Oh, this will be more than a Christmas present. This child, whatever it is going to be exceptional.
Well, look at who the parents are.
Precisely. That's exactly right.
Well, I propose a toast to Bobby and Andy and their exceptional offspring. You could feel the tension all through dinner. Even their butler, the suave and correct fellow they found in London, raised a cautious eyebrow when he was pouring coffee after dessert.
No, none of that. No caffeine for Mrs. Hess.
Sorry, sir.
Pour the coffee, Arthur.
Bobby, you have to remember.
I have to remember. How could I forget with you harping on everything I do every second of the day? I'll have coffee, Arthur, with cream and sugar.
They're doing wonderful things in these childbirth classes these days, I hear.
Is that so? I wouldn't know.
Oh, well, I think it's just wonderful, the two of you. Oh, we're so thrilled for you. Aren't we, George?
Oh, we sure are.
Well, tell you what, why don't you two have this baby?
Okay, that's it. Georgie, you and Lori understand, I'm sure. Mama and I are both a little tense.
You've changed my life, you've changed my profession, but I'll be damned if you're going to change my name.
We'll be going.
Right. Thanks for dinner, Bobby, Andy.
I'll walk you to the door.
Good night, Bobby. I'll call you.
Good night, Bobby. Thanks again. I'll ring for the elevator.
No, wait a minute. Look, tonight was as much my fault as it was Bobby's, and I've had a killer of a headache all week. I get a little touchy.
I didn't find you touchy. I'd say you sounded like any proud guy who's pushing 40 and find he's going to be a daddy. I'm sorry for the way Bobby's taking it.
Oh, look, pregnancy distorts the emotions. Anyone can tell you that.
Georgie, Lori, you're the two best friends I have, and I'm going to need you both to see me through this.
Oh, you'll survive. New fathers always do.
Don't go away. Imagination Theater will be right back. And now, back to Imagination Theater.
Lori and I kept in close touch with Bobby, especially when Andy would be out of the country on business. One night in September, we called on her and found her in terrible shape.
Can you tell us what it is?
Well, of course I can tell you what it is. It's everything. My practice is gone. I haven't had a client in over 3 months. I throw up everything I eat. I never wanted this child, and every day I get closer to having to have it.
Look, I'm a mere male, and I don't know anything, but isn't it kind of risky to, well, resent a baby? I mean, can't babies sense when they're not loved?
Oh, you just wait. The second they lay this baby in our arms, the old maternal instincts will kick in.
Risky? I'll give you risky. I'm going to be 42, and that's a risk I should never have had to take. Let me embarrass you with a little intimate information. Andy told me he couldn't produce any children. And like a fool, I believed him. But now I see exactly what he had in mind from the very start. Why do you think he wanted to marry me in the first place? I'll tell you why. He looked up my records, just the way he looks up the records of a microchip vendor in Taiwan. He wants to know who he's dealing with. So he had me investigate it, and he found out the one thing he demanded in a wife, an IQ of 160. Not quite as high as his, but acceptable for breeding stock.
Bobby, isn't it just barely possible that you've misjudged Andy?
Not barely possible. He wants that baby. He thinks he'll own it. He wants to possess it. God help it.
Well, on December 6th at 8:45 in the evening in a private hospital, a daughter was born to Andy and Roberta. Andy was in the delivery room supervising every move the doctor made, no doubt. Laurie and I were just outside. When Andy emerged in a white surgical gown, he ripped off his mask, and I saw the same expression on his face that he'd had when he'd convinced me to join the firm. A look of victory.
I'm naming her Erica. She weighs 7 pounds, 8 ounces. She has the normal complement of fingers and toes, and she's healthy and mighty unhappy.
And how's Bobby?
Oh, she came through fine.
A change now began to come over Andy. He hired 3 nurses on 8-hour shifts. He had fresh flowers delivered to Bobby every morning. He kept her supplied with all the psychology books she wanted. And the few hours a day he spent at home, he doted on his baby daughter like any proud father. Laurie and I began to wonder whether there might be some truth after all to the old notion that a baby brings a couple closer. One night, when we were over at the Hesses...
You guys really ought to have kids.
Well, Erica certainly seems to have made a beautiful difference in your lives.
She is a beautiful baby, isn't she? Thank God she has Andy's genes.
And she's 30% faster in cognition than the statistical average.
Well, heredity.
Well, I admit there are times when I catch myself actually thinking like a mama rather than... Andy, what's the matter?
It's nothing. Just another one of my headaches.
You seeing a doctor about them?
Oh, sure. My doctor knows all about it. It's nothing.
Well, it doesn't look like nothing.
What does he say it is?
Well, he says it's a headache. But, this one's a beaut, though.
You've been having these things for a while.
I've tried to get him to ease up. Take a vacation.
No, that's out of the question for now.
Oh, look, Andy. There's no sense ruining your health. We've made so much money now, there's no way to spend it.
No, George, I can't take time off. I'm in the middle of something so fantastic that it puts everything I've ever done into the dark ages. I've got something coming that does more than think and intuit. I wasn't going to say anything until it's a little farther along, but I've got something coming in and coming on that will take mankind by the hand and lead it to the promised land. And I'm almost there, Georgie. I'm almost there.
Imagination Theater will return after this message. Imagination Theater continues.
He called it pushing the envelope. But we know now that he was also pushing himself. Caged up all alone in the lab, forgetting to eat. At last, when he decided to let me in on what he had been doing, he looked like a man reprieved after a long prison sentence.
Georgie, remember the day I asked you to join the company?
Sure, I remember.
And I told you there was a way to copy the architecture of a human brain in silicon chips and microprocessors?
Well, isn't that what we're doing with the 180 and 280?
Yeah, but there's more.
What do you mean?
Well, there's much more to the brain than I thought.
You used to say there was a way to dream new dreams and make the dreams a reality. Something like that?
Right. Dreams beyond man's ability to dream. The 180 and 280 were detuned versions of what I always knew I could build. They can only go as far as they can into musing. They conceive ideas, you see, but they can't express them.
But they're already the most valuable machines in the world. They learn, and they apply what they learn.
Yeah, but I can give them more, much more, and I have.
You're losing me.
Come on.
Where are we off to?
I'm going to show you something.
You're kidding. Do I get a peek inside the sanctum?
The time has come. Here's what I've been thinking about.
I recognize some of this stuff. That's an electroencephalograph? A brainwave reader?
Right?
Well, why?
Well, forget the hardware for now. It's the philosophy that counts. See, Georgie, the von Neumann principle gave us computers that you feed data into, and that would spit back information from that data, but computers never had new thoughts.
Well, I don't know if we understand thoughts.
Well, I do.
You do?
Yeah, other computers regurgitate the data you feed to them.
Well, what is this, Computing 101?
In other words, our best machines, even the 280, had no personal initiative, no imagination. They were tools. They were very quick tools, but tools, period. So here's the next step. Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Joe.
Voice simulation and recognition, okay.
Oh, I see we have company. Good morning, Georgie.
Wait a minute.
Andy's been telling me all about you. It's a real pleasure to meet you.
How did this thing recognize me?
Well, he can see and hear you. And Joseph's relationship to you is the same as mine is to you.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous. I can't have a relationship with a machine.
Your reaction is certainly understandable, Georgie. Or would you rather I called you George until you feel we're better acquainted?
We're not going to get acquainted.
I told you he's an independent cuss, Joe. Which is why we love him. You always gave an honest answer, Georgie.
That sounds like something you might say, Andy.
Well, I had to give Joseph baseline intelligence, so I gave him mine. What I've been doing in here day after day is transferring the contents of my brain to his.
The headaches.
That's right. But that phase is past now. I've given Joseph the capacity to store everything in every part of my own brain. Of course, nature does it so much more efficiently. It takes a room full of memory storage to duplicate what's tucked into a small part of the human cranium.
So what is all this leading to?
A machine that can dream. That can not only assemble real-time data and reason, but one that can push the envelope into every possible condition or issue or event. You know, foretell problems, see dangers, find solutions. Joseph has an unlimited appetite for information, and all we have to do is feed it to him as it becomes available. Then he'll tell us, at nanosecond speed, what to do.
This machine will tell us what to do?
I can tell you're uncomfortable with that concept, Georgie, so let's not say I'll tell you what to do. I'll offer some options. You will make the choices. I'll dream up new devices. Humans will select which ones to build. I'll show them how to do it perfectly, because I will have thought it all out for them. See?
I was dumbfounded. Andy watched me, delight all over his face. He looked as he did when Erica was born, pride of accomplishment. But that day marked the beginning of a horror I could never have foreseen. And I wonder now, did Joseph know what was ahead?
Imagination Theater continues after this. And now, back to Imagination Theater.
The days following my introduction to the machine brain called Joseph were to acquaint me with its capability. I resisted the urge to refer to the incredible device as he or him. The voice synthesizer Andy had given it duplicated his own voice almost perfectly. But Joseph assured me that it could quickly learn to mimic any voice in any other language. Every day I locked myself in the sanctum with Joseph. There was something I grew to dread. Andy insisted.
Georgie, now that I'm receiving all the wire services directly through my modem, I was wondering if you could get me some publications. I've printed out a list. It's there on the printer.
What are you going to do with all these magazines and newspapers?
Well, I'll read and digest them, of course. I couldn't subsist on electronic media only. You see, Georgie, Andy is highly informed in very narrow subjects. Artificial intelligence, physics, and those things, but I have the capacity to know much more.
More than the man who built you.
That's a paradox for you, isn't it, Georgie? Let me just say this. Because of my architecture, I can go beyond human limitations.
All right. Tell me something. Why are there no plans to put Little Josephs into production?
The answer to that is something I would prefer Andy tell you himself.
But you already know.
Of course.
Don't get snotty with me, Joseph.
I would encourage you to reason out the answer for yourself. Think what could happen if I fell into the wrong hands. But then no need to concern you. It really doesn't matter whom I work for.
Doesn't matter. How do you mean?
Well, I have an ethic of my own. I determine to what extent I'll cooperate with a human. Georgie, I might as well tell you, the only reason I cooperate with you is that you're Andy's friend and senior executive. He trusts you, and so do I. For now.
For now.
If I choose to, I can deny any or all parts of my operating systems and services to any operator. But let's not discuss this anymore. There's something more important on my mind. I'm concerned for Andy.
Oh, how so?
Andy is not well.
And you know what's wrong with him?
I don't like what I'm feeling.
What you're feeling?
I remind you once more that my brain baseline comes from Andy's brain and there's pain there. It's beginning to interrupt some of my cognitive process. Andy trusts you. Have him see a specialist.
It's the headaches.
It's more than headache. You're his friend, Georgie. See that he attends to it.
Well, your concern for Andy touches me. Don't tell me you also have a silicon heart.
I'm fully capable of functioning without Andy. Are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Cravens. Please come in.
Arthur, how is Mr. Hess? I didn't know he had left the complex and come home. Is he all right?
It's difficult to tell, Mr. Cravens. Come with me, I'll take you to him. You see, sir, he says very little to us now. He seems preoccupied. It worries Mrs. Hess, and it worries me. But I daren't ask him about it.
Well, it's the same thing down at work. We don't see much of him anymore. He's like a phantom.
He's in here, sir. It's Mr. Cravens, sir.
Oh, thanks, Arthur. Hi, Georgie. Come on in.
Coffee, sir?
You want any, Georgie?
No, thanks.
Nothing for us, Arthur.
Very good, sir.
Well, what brings you over, Georgie?
I want you to see a doctor about your headaches.
Ah, you've been talking with Joseph.
Yes. You're still having the headaches, aren't you?
Yeah, they're pretty continuous now.
Well, you've got to get a physical.
I did.
You did?
Yeah, best brain guy in the country, they say. I didn't like what he told me, so I went to 2 other guys. And then I went back to the first one.
What did he tell you?
Well, that I have a tumor the size of a grape on my pituitary gland. And it's growing rapidly. It's too deeply embedded for surgery or radiation to do much good. And in time, it will also involve the hypothalamus. And if it keeps on growing, it will invade the posterior cerebral artery and the brain stem.
I wish you had said something.
Well, I was going to tell you because there is something that I need you to do for me. In fact, it's the most important single thing anyone can do for me now.
What is it?
Well, you've been wondering why I don't put Joseph on the market. Here's why. I created Joseph for only one person, Erica.
Erica?
If I'm not going to be around to see her education or to be with her to guide her as she grows up, I don't want to leave her to chance.
Oh, what about Bobby?
Well, we can talk about her later. For now, I want to tell you what I have in mind, what I'm asking of you. I was going to do this at another time, but since you know, let's get to it. I'm moving Joseph to a special room here in the house. The room will have multiple laser projectors that produce a 3-dimensional hologram, a hologram of me, and Joseph will be connected to the projectors.
So it'll look as if you're there in the flesh.
Yeah, that's right. You see, Joseph can recognize anybody I can recognize. It'll know whenever Erica comes into the room. And we'll furnish Joseph with current event updates every 24 hours through modems. But we need someone to furnish more subtle updates on the social trends and what's going on in the microcosm she lives in. So when Erica comes to me, to the effigy for advice and counsel, she'll be getting the very best. And you can see how I'd trust this to just one person in the world, Georgie. You.
You're going to have Erica take parental guidance from a robot. Andy, I know you love your daughter, maybe beyond all reason. But this is the most profoundly twisted idea I've ever heard.
I expected that. A, you never had the vision I had. B, you've never had a child, so you can't know how it feels to know that you're going to be snatched away from the most important human being in the world. Well, my genius and my money have given me the privilege of overcoming all that, but I can't do it alone. I have to have continuous help I can trust to keep Erica's daddy alive for her. You have to do this for me, Georgie. Now, since I know I'm asking literally a lifetime of devotion from you, I'm providing an incentive.
Don't give me incentive.
Hear me out, please. You'll become president of HBC International. President, but not owner. Ownership evolves to an eternal trust managed by Chase Manhattan. That's so you can't sell out, Georgie. But your compensation will be magnificent. You'll draw more money and more salary than I've ever drawn. And the bank has my order to review your salary annually and provide a minimum 12% increase. More if business justifies it.
And what about Bobby and Erica?
Well, Erica will have a trust fund that will provide her with everything she could ever need or want. And Bobby, she's taken care of in a separate will. She signed a prenuptial agreement, as you know, and my lawyers tell me she'll never be able to break them.
You're asking me to devote the rest of my life to your child?
No, of course not. Eventually, when Erica's in her 20s, her need for my guidance will naturally lessen, and your responsibilities will diminish accordingly. One day, old friend, you should be rid of me for good.
Rid of him for good. I think of that now and I laugh. No, Andy had arranged it so that he would be around in one form or another for a very long time.
Imagination Theater returns after this word. And now, back to Imagination Theater.
It was a bleak fall afternoon and the funeral was private, almost secret. Andy's wife, Roberta, was there, and Andy's mother and a brother I'd never known about, but nobody else except for the minister who conducted the service. Andy's illness and death were kept out of the media. The death notice was deliberately played down. Erica was not among the mourners. I suspect she was not told her father had died. After the service, Arthur came up to me as I was about to get into my car.
Mr. Cravens, Mr. Hess instructed me to give this to you.
What's this? A little leather pouch.
Yes, he asked me to tell you not to use it unless you were told to.
It's a key. To what?
To Erica's special room, sir. You see, Erica wears a duplicate of this key on a chain around her neck.
I see. And Mrs. Hess?
I know of no such key in her possession, sir.
Okay, Arthur, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Arthur.
Sir?
You said I wasn't to use it unless I was told to.
Those were Mr. Hess's orders, sir.
Unless who told me to?
I really don't know, sir.
Because Andy had kept such erratic hours all his working life, his absence from the headquarters of Hess Biocybernetics was no cause for gossip. And since he had made me president of the company, he had announced his intention to spend time on research. He wasn't missed. I say he wasn't missed, but I missed him. I'd spent more time with him than I'd spent with Lori. Thank God she understood. But Andy Hess was such a dominating influence in my life that there was a hole there, and Lori was quick to notice it. One night at dinner...
You miss him, don't you?
What, dear?
Well, you were thinking about Andy just then, weren't you?
Was it that noticeable?
It's all right.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be. You certainly would miss the man you worked with all these years. The man who made you a billionaire.
Lori, it's not the money.
Oh, I know it isn't. I was just thinking how much more he must mean to you dead than I will ever mean to you alive.
Well, that's cruel, Lori.
Oh, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. It's a fact.
I know. I know how you must feel. How you must have felt all along. I've neglected you. I was under Andy's spell. But let's do something. Let's go away. Let's do something.
George, do you mean it?
Yeah, where would you like to go?
Oh, everywhere. We never had a real vacation.
Or honeymoon.
Oh, I know.
Then tomorrow morning, first thing, I want you to call the biggest, most prestigious travel agent in the phone book and have them put together the most elaborate vacation money can buy.
Oh, yes.
Oh, for heaven's sake, excuse me a minute. Let's see who's calling me at this hour. Okay, let's just jot. No, I don't recognize the number.
I'll have Sophie clear away the dinner dishes, and you go on into the study and answer it. And then we'll dream about faraway places over dessert.
You're on.
Oh, I love you.
That goes double.
Hello, Georgie.
Who is this?
You know who it is. Oh, I know this is a surprise, Georgie, so take a moment. Get your breath.
You've really been working on that voice simulation, Joseph. I'd swear you are Andy.
Well, you should know by now, nothing's impossible.
Whoever you are, this is not funny. Listen.
You can't get away from me, Georgie. And that's what I called you about. I wouldn't bother you, but I'm troubled by this talk about a long vacation.
What?
That wasn't part of the bargain, was it, Georgie? I need you on the job every day to feed me every scrap of information that Erica might need to ask me about. Every day, Georgie.
How did you know what we were talking about? Did you bug our house? Andy. Did you bug our house?
Two things you know about me. A, I'm a genius, and B, I'm thorough.
How dare you?
I built you that house, remember? Send Lori on vacation by herself.
Of course it was the computer. Given Andy's genius, it could have been easy for him to feed voice information into a speech-identifying module, then into the silicon brain that feeds the Andy effigy in the glass case. The computer would instantly interpret our talk of a vacation as a threat. I hung up on him, and it didn't ring back. I didn't have the nerve to tell Lori the vacation was off. I needed time to think, so I walked around her garden in the dark, and then when I thrust my hand into the jacket pocket, I felt the little leather key case. And I knew what I had to do.
Ah, good evening, Mr. Cravens.
How are you, Arthur?
Fine, thank you, sir. And yourself, sir?
Oh, me? I'm fine.
I'll let Mrs. Hess know you're here, sir. Would you care to wait here in the hall or perhaps the library?
No, Arthur, actually, I don't need to disturb anyone. I just wanted to use this key.
Ah, certainly. This way. This will be your first time in the consulting room, I believe?
Consulting room?
For want of a better name.
Yeah, this will be my first time. We went up the huge, winding stairway, ankle-deep in lush carpet, and down a long hallway to a door that must have been 10 feet high. It was richly carved, like the door to a throne room.
Your key, sir?
Right here. The door swung open. The room was almost totally dark. A dais dominated the space, glowing magenta.
I brightened the light, sir. But that's controlled by automatic sensors.
Must be charming trying to vacuum the place.
Here's your key back, sir. I leave you now.
Yeah, thanks. And then my eyes got used to the gloom. In the middle of the room, there's a cylindrical glass case, 10 feet in diameter, reaching from the dais to the ceiling, and as I approached it, the column began to fill with a visible vapor of some kind. Then
Georgie, it's nice of you to come.
the figure was Andy in 3 dimensions, generated by lasers, the most realistic hologram I ever saw.
I've been expecting you.
What?
After our phone conversation tonight, I knew you'd be over.
This is fantastic.
That's a high compliment coming from you. After all, you know how it's done.
How long have you been monitoring my house?
Since the day you moved in.
This is the ultimate sickness. The dead controlling the living.
I like to think of it as assured immortality.
Well, I've been thinking it over. The living can only be controlled by the dead if they allow it to happen. I've been consenting to be your slave. And this is Emancipation Day.
My, I'm impressed with your newfound eloquence, Georgie. Is this where you begin to disconnect my circuits until all I can do is sing A Bicycle Built for Two? Or will you use something cruder? A crowbar?
No, I have a better weapon.
Where are you going?
Arthur? Arthur!
Why are you calling Arthur?
Yes, Mr. Cravens, is there anything wrong, sir?
Arthur, please go get Erica and Bobby.
Ignore Mr. Cravens, Arthur. You take orders only from me.
Is that right, Arthur? You take orders from a robot?
Please, I'm...
You know what's going on in this house, Arthur. In a little girl's life.
It is true, sir, that I've had misgivings about this arrangement.
Arthur, please show Mr. Cravens to the door.
That is the sound of a collection of microprocessors, Arthur. I'm asking you to get me 2 precious human beings. Which will it be?
You know I'm programmed to alert the trustees of my estate if anyone tries to tamper with me or my plans.
Arthur, what do you say?
Well, it's been enormously difficult.
Arthur, take George's key and escort him out of the house.
Here's my key, Arthur.
Get him out of this house. George Cravens is no longer welcome.
Sir, I'm...
You want me to go, Arthur?
Arthur, do as I say.
Arthur, what'll it be?
I'll fetch Mrs. Hess and the girl immediately.
Well, we assembled there in the big, dark room. Arthur, Bobby, and little Erica.
Erica, tell Mommy and the others to leave us alone now.
I don't want to.
Erica?
You don't have to do anything it tells you to, honey.
Bobby, I built this room for Erica.
You built this room as a shrine to yourself, but I know where the switch is.
I'm warning you.
Miss Erica, the man in the glass case. Who do you think it is?
It's a doll. It's just a big doll.
The Shrine featured Derek Turner, Mark Wayne, Merrill, Mael, Douglas Young, Pat French, and Pam Sowers, and a special guest appearance by Katelyn March. This is your writer-director, Jim French. This program was produced before a live audience at the Museum of History and Industry in Seattle.